Hi friends, welcome to part 2 of Taking Risks. In this vlog, I am exploring creating several pieces from the same starting point, which is kind of what the larger permutation series is, but in this case what I did was I created a select color palette of reds and yellows and gray and started them in succession. So if you haven't seen part 1, you could check the link up there. Essentially, I started 9 pieces, and as I started to work through the individual pieces, I noticed that they started to feel less cohesive and less of a family. And what I attribute that is to sort of taking risks. And in today's vlog, I'm going to continue on this with 4 new permutations. So let's just get into it. In the first piece, I knew I wanted to have the 2 different color lines, which is a very tedious process because you have to switch between the 2 pens and make sure they line up. But I noticed right away that the thickness of the tips of the pens was different. But I decided to just continue making the piece with the 2 thicknesses just to see how it came out, because normally I have it match a little bit more. So I also ended up doing posting a progress piece on my Instagram and putting a little poll asking if people liked it with the mismatched lines, or if I should go over it and match the thicknesses. And the result of the poll was that people liked it with the mismatching lines, so I kept it. But that was kind of contrary to my impulse, but I just did it, which is in itself kind of risk-taking. I've done this technique before where I used lines of contrasting color in different regions, and basically on this piece there's the yellow on the gray paint and black on the yellow and red paint. But what happened was, because the yellow is thicker, it really covers the gray, so you almost can't see the background, and the gray peeks out just a little bit around the edges of the yellow, so you don't really get a sense of the paint being different colors. So it's a very different outcome than in a lot of the other pieces where I've done this. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I do think it's worth pointing out, and for me it definitely will affect my decision making on when to use this technique or how to use it in the future, because I think what's important is that the strokes of paint go far enough outside where there's a contrast, if that makes sense. For the next piece, I used some gold gouache to paint over the larger gray area, and then I used a piece of charcoal to create more movement over that. And then I used my mouth atomizer to set the charcoal with some pastel fixative, so that it wouldn't smudge as I continued to work on the piece. A while back I bought some embroidery thread, like a whole set with all these different colors, and I've been waiting for a chance to use it, and I felt like this was the piece. After just sampling different colors against the paint, I chose this magenta color. But first I had to go through this process of isolating the strands of each thread. And I don't know if you know this, but when you buy embroidery thread, it comes like threaded together with individual threads threaded into like a thicker one. And I don't know much about embroidery, but I think I was told at one time that you should separate the threads so that you can have thinner thread. And the way I do it is this long process of just like stringing it along the ground so it doesn't like knot or twist or anything, and then just spooling it up. And you could buy little spool things from the store, but I didn't. I just used these cardboard ones that I made myself. So at first I thought I was going to just do 4 lines in the pattern, but as it was finished I didn't like it, so I started over again. And one thing I learned about how different thread is from ink is that it's 3-dimensional, and so the order of operation in which you place each line is pretty significant. You can't just like add lines later. You have to know in advance exactly what you're going to do, because if you do them out of order, it shows. I don't know if you could tell, but on the second pass around, I changed my order of operation, and I thought it would have an effect, but it actually doesn't. But it does create a pattern on the back side that's interesting. It just kind of wastes a little bit of thread to do it that way. There are slight issues with the final product of this piece, but it's possible that only I could see them, so I'm pretty happy with it. So today I'm doing something a little different, which I don't normally do, which is doing like a midweek kind of check-in. And it's because a lot of the YouTubers I watch, the artists, they manage online shops. So when they do their vlogs, they're often like saying, today I'm packing orders and I'm designing stickers and like all this stuff. And I just don't do that as of now. But this week I do have something interesting going on, which is I had one of my previous buyers contact me asking if some pieces were available, and so he's like, I like this one and this one, are they available? And one of them was and the other one wasn't. And then he's like, I like this one and this one, and one of them wasn't available. So he picked out 2, and he's like, I really like this first one I showed you. I don't know if you do commissions, but can you do something sort of like this? And I don't normally do commissions, mostly because, again, my work is so kind of personal to me and whatever, but I also am completely open to someone saying, I like this permutation, can you make some more like it? So that's what I've been kind of like breaking up my week with. But what I think I'm gonna do is have keep the two videos separate and continue doing my one video about this series of pieces that's about taking risks, and then I'm gonna do a separate video that's about this commission sort of series, because what I ended up doing was doing multiple pieces simultaneously, sort of like doing an homage to some of my earlier work. So anyway, that's what's going on with me this week. What else happened was I ended up not posting a video last week. Usually I post them on Fridays, and if I'm on time. And it was Thanksgiving, and I just didn't quite finish editing, and we went to Vietnam for the weekend. We basically spent a lot of time by the pool. So yeah, that's what's going on with me, and I'll continue to show you what I'm working on. With the last two permutations, there wasn't much risk-taking. The funny thing is, with this piece, I considered doing it in brown, and then I forgot before I started, and about 5 minutes in, I was like, wait a minute, this is brown. And I realized that I had just left out brown pens from one of my earlier pieces. So, kids, keep your workspaces clean and tidy. So that leaves this last permutation. I chose to just do the classic full permutation, but in a smaller size and sort of off-center. This is actually something that I don't do often. I tend to just use the template as is, where it's centered on the page. But I felt like the composition of the underpainting seemed to support this. And it's not something I'm against doing, it's just something I tend not to do. So I said there weren't many risks taken, but in a way, this is just a little bit of a departure for me. So it's a little bit of a risk. And now here you see the finishing touches of this piece and a little sneak preview of the next piece, which will be in the conclusion, part 3 of this series. So that was part 2 of taking risks. I'm making the effort of making these videos shorter. Let me know in the comments if you like the shorter format or if you like them kind of longer. And while you're at it, make sure you hit that thumbs up button, and if you haven't already, subscribe. I really thank you for watching this video, and I will see you next time.